Hey there, thanks for stopping by my channel. I like playing games and chatting about games. And these are my first impressions with No Rest for the Wicked. Ooh, sweet, sweet immersion. There's nothing I enjoy more than an RPG that sucks you in before you even leave the tutorial. Coddling that addictive wonderment to uncover every nook and cranny while being occupied with a solid gameplay loop and engaging story. With those basic requirements out of the way, No Rest for the Wicked already is a solid game, but it's the unique take on both the ARPG and Souls-like genre, plus studio-defining visuals that sets this game apart.
We prayed for summer, we prayed for fall, for harvest, for mercy, for rain.
First, a quick summary of Wicked's inception. Moon Studios and its team of 80 developers have been hard at work for the last 6 years to bring this next title to life. These are the well-known developers behind the beloved Ori and the Blind Forest series. It was pretty difficult to see an Xbox ad a few years ago without a snippet of these beautifully crafted side-scroller adventures as the mainline titles within the Xbox Studios lineup. What I love to see is a studio with a distinct style and identity break off on their own from a behemoth like Xbox, forge their own path, and build off their previous projects. Moon Studios is quoted as building No Rest for the Wicked to innovate on the ARPG genre. While there may be some bumps on its complete vision, they indeed are bringing something new to the table for its early access launch. Alright, let's start off with the good and obvious. What a sight to behold. As you've likely already confirmed for yourself, Wicked is a beautiful game. Its stylized approach helps set it apart from anything you've played previously, and its grim tale storybook-like aesthetic blends so well with the top-down approach. Environments are varied and uniquely detailed, from trees howling in the wind, dense forests, to the dark dewy dungeons below. If world design is a big factor in video games that you like, then Wicked is a must-try for this alone. Also, I can't not note the verticality of level design here. While typical ARPGs play on these flat planes, Wicked finally innovates on the design with ledges, ladders to climb, jump puzzles to solve, and entirely new zones that can only be accessed through climbing. It's something I didn't know was truly missing, but now, going back and playing any old ARPG, it'll sorely be missed. Alright, on to the combat. While there was a lot of swinging, missing, and dying, I still had a really good time with the gameplay here. Unlike its fellow kinfolk, Wicked plays more in the vein of a Souls-like title than the spammy, fast-paced action of a Diablo game. Your character attacks are heavy and need to be approached strategically. It's also tied to weight limits, which determines different states of maneuverability and speed, which is similar to a Souls game. Weapons have different attack speeds, distances, and combos that will push you to learn and master versus just clicking as fast as possible to get that shiny loot. When it comes to those classic RPG elements like stats, due to me lacking the creativity needed to properly min-max a character and the fear of making the wrong choices, which I'll touch on later, I mainly focused on a strength and health build. Luckily, I picked up a two-handed sword with great strength stats, but there was a twist. Some weapons you come across will be labeled cursed, which creates a bit of a risk versus reward approach to combat. Want great crit or armor penetration? Sure, but you'll lose a percentage of your experience every time you die. And depending on your skill level, you may die a lot. So you need to think about that. Want high survivability? Great, you got it. But you'll lose gold upon death. Fun stuff, right? It's a unique take on weapon composition that's interesting for the early game, but the current special stats and debuffs don't seem to have much of value as you enter the later levels of the game. For example, why would you worry about an experience decrease if you're already max level, right? Things like that. I'd love to see them continue to play off this with all sorts of zany debuffs or effects that could change your gameplay experience. Think, if you hit somebody, it turns you into a skeleton, or maybe you have swampy feet, but you hit more and you do more damage. I think there's a lot they can play off this as a fun mechanic, as well as a mechanic to think about strategically when making builds. All in all, if you're a fan of Souls-like games, you're gonna like this. While not as difficult as some of those mainline titles you may have played in the past, it still beckons you to learn each enemy attack pattern, practice your timing, and learn their weaknesses to progress further in the game. And the final gameplay aspect that grabbed me were the survival-like elements baked into the gameplay loop. Instead of crafting potions or resting at camps, you'll need to live off the land to keep your character alive and buffed for each venture. Once you reach a certain point in the story, you'll even gain access to a house, crafting stations, and you can begin your loop of upgrading armor, weapons, and your town features to your heart's content. It's a great tool to break up the pace of the main story progress, and it was a pleasant surprise that really dug its hooks into me. And that element to tie everything together, the story itself. Even though it's early access, there's really something here that feels fleshed out and ready to open itself up to players' curiosity. From the grander campaign to the micro conflicts in between, you can tell this story will have a varied cast of characters with interesting motivations and complexities as the story continues to unfold. It kicks off quick, but doesn't wallow itself too much in exposition. There's bad stuff going on, conflicts between factions, and you're stuck right in the middle of it. Add in some great voice acting, beautiful animations, and of course, Moon Studios' aesthetic. It takes no time at all to get invested. With my playthrough, it was about 15 hours of gameplay, plus a repeatable dungeon that'll keep you busy until the next piece of content comes out. What's really exciting is there is a lot on the docket just for this year alone before it finishes early access and hits 1.0. Alright, so for the last section here, just some of the cons that I came across while playing. Performance was a bit rough for me. For those like myself who are on the go and rely on streaming services like GeForce Now, it is a bit tricky to really judge performance when there are also connectivity issues, but it's safe to say that you're playing on a pretty high-end PC, and a lot of what I was experiencing was just straight up freezing and screen tearing, not just connectivity issues. That said, it's something the team at Moon Studios has publicly shared they are working on for those players who are running into issues on their PCs. I've already seen a ton of updates come out in the last few weeks, so I'm already assuming this is going to be fixed and a lot of these problems will be solved by the time 1.0 is released. The issue is, for a game that relies on Twitch-based combat, having this happen during a tough fight or deep within a dungeon run can make things pretty frustrating, and I know the team is hard at work to make sure that's not the case, but I did run into that issue a few times myself. Alright, the other buzzkill in the room was inventory management, but at the time of writing, I know the studio is also working to alleviate some of the frustrations that have been plaguing players. I'd like there still to be a few more paths towards increasing inventory space, but time will tell. I know they're working on building chests, giving you a player house earlier on within the campaign, and working on different ways to sort your inventory. It sounds like they're paying close attention to player feedback and will continue to update and adjust the game, hopefully on that player feedback, and just smooth things out, because right now it's a bit of a doozy trying to manage all of those items, run back to base, sell those items, deconstruct those items, and get back to swinging and enjoying the game. Oh boy, and last but not least, my respec woes. As I mentioned earlier, allocating stats and theory crafting builds is not my specialty. I often work towards survivability first, and once I have a handle on the mechanics, I respect and look up some builds online. At the moment, Wicked has missed the mark here, as the only way to respec is to create a whole new character. If the game didn't rely so heavily on following a main story campaign, I could understand the reasoning for replayability's sake, but at this point, creating a new character just to try out a new weapon is a bit rough. Just to add in a quick edit here, at the time of recording this, a new update has come out that has fixed this issue. It looks like you can use a specific item within the game to respect your character. You can also use weapons that are outside of the stats you've inputted for your character, so you can at least try out a weapon. Of course, you'll have a decrease in damage. Again, the studio really seems to have their finger on the pulse here, which is great to see them take player feedback and improve on the game for the players and for the vision they have. Alright, outside of that, I'm really enjoying my time with Wicked. I'm a sucker for player housing, light survival farming, with a big world to play around in. If you aren't turned off by an incomplete story and are looking for a new ARPG to sink your time into that has some unique gameplay features you won't see in other games in the genre, I highly recommend trying out No Rest for the Wicked and dropping in some feedback for the devs as they continue their development towards 1.0 release, hopefully later this year.
And our prayers came back like a voice in the dark.